Hello lovely, and welcome to Yoga with Carolynne. Today is a gentle yoga practice to release your lower back. This is going to be a blend of a little bit of gentle strengthening, a little bit of somatic intentional movement, and a little bit of yin. And the props that you're going to want for today's practice are pretty much all of them, which is usually the case. I would strongly recommend that you cover your entire yoga mat with a blanket because you're going to be on your back for a lot of today's practice. And then your meditation cushion, a bolster, a couple of blocks, and a strap. The strap is going to be pretty much the most important prop. So if you don't have a yoga strap, I don't have a yoga strap, you can use a bathrobe tie or a long scarf that you have lying around. So put on your comfy clothes, grab your yoga props, and let's get started. Welcome to Yoga with Carolynne, teaching empaths and sensitive souls just like you how to create a collaborative relationship with your body through cozy, accessible yoga and self-care practices in order to live a life filled with less doing and more being. So to start this practice, you are going to make your way onto your back and making sure that you have your strap nearby because we're going to be using that in a little bit. So make your way onto your back, and if you have your blanket, you can place it the way that I have mine here, where it's covering the entire yoga mat, just because it'll be a little bit more comfortable for the back of your head and your low back as you bring yourself down towards the floor. So before we do any sort of movement, I'll ask that you bring a bend to the legs, the soles of the feet connect to the floor, and you place your hands palm face down on your belly. The eyes can remain open, or if it would feel okay and safe for you to do so, you can bring your eyes to a close. Your awareness settles into your low back, settles into your pelvis, into your glutes, and without any sort of judgment or any sort of shoulds or expectations, you simply notice how your low back is settling into the floor. Notice if there's any difference between the right and the left side. Now how about in your legs? How do your knees feel? Or your ankles? Your legs? Getting really curious and getting to know your body here. And as you continue to explore internally how your physical body has settled here on your mat, take a few moments to begin to deepen and lengthen your breath in a way that feels supportive, that doesn't feel forced, doesn't feel like a breath that doesn't quite feel like yours, but really finding a breath that feels like yours and that feels right. Noticing as your hands rise and fall as you breathe in and you breathe out. Then if the eyes are closed, you're more than welcome to keep the eyes closed for the majority of the practice if you want to just listen to my words. Or you can open the eyes so that you can take a peek at the screen at any point during any of these movements and any of these shapes. So we'll start with, if the thighs are in towards each other, you'll separate the knees so that then you find a little bit more alignment in your pelvis and in the positioning of your legs. So your ankles are in line with your knees and your knees are in line with your hips. Doesn't really matter just yet how close the heels are to the glutes. You're simply finding a position that feels good, that feels supportive for you. And then we'll start with A really subtle, simple movement here, just a tipping back and forth of the pelvis. So you'll take a moment to tip the pelvis so that you're pressing the low back into the floor. And then finding the opposite shape. So you'll tip the pelvis the other direction. So pressing the tailbone towards the lower end of your mat and kind of arching in your low back. Do that a few more times, moving the pelvis in the other direction. So you're lengthening the low back, slightly engaging in the lower abdominals, pressing the low back into the floor. And then finding the opposite shape. So arching in the back. Doing that one more time. And then releasing that, just coming into a position with the low back and the pelvis that feels okay, that feels right for you. And then you'll grab hold of your strap. So we're going to be coming into some really simple movements, some simple mobility. I'd also like to say at this moment that some of these movements I didn't invent. Megan McCarthy, who is a fellow YouTuber, somatic yoga movement teacher, she is a wonderful, wonderful resource of somatic movements. So I have incorporated a few of those movements here in this video, and I'll link her channel below. So you're going to be placing the strap on the back of your right thigh, keeping the left sole of the foot on the floor, and you'll then bring the right knee in so that you're finding alignment of that knee above your hip. So finding a kind of 90-degree angle in that leg, and then let the lower part of your leg be nice and soft. So you've got that strap on the back of your thigh so that you're not going to be using the strength in your leg to be moving your leg. You're going to be using your arms. And we also want to make sure that the back of the neck and your shoulders stay soft and in contact with the floor. And then nice simple movement. So you'll take an inhale here. Exhale as you gently pull that leg in towards your torso. And then that's it. That's your movement. So exhale, you bring the knee above the hip. And then that's your movement. So inhale as you allow that knee to come back over top of the hip. And exhale as you bring it back in. So again, this movement is being done with the strength of your arms as opposed to your legs. So your leg is completely soft. A few more times like that. And then you'll come back into that position of that knee above the hip. We're going to add something to this here. So you'll take an inhale here. Exhale as you bring that knee in towards you. Then on the inhale, bring that knee back above the hip and you reach the leg up towards the sky, but keep the foot soft and then drop that foot. Exhale as you bring the knee in towards the chest. Inhale, knee above hip, extend that foot. Exhale, foot down, knee in. Last time, inhale, extend. And exhale, bring the knee in. And meeting with the knee above the hip again. And you're going to be holding that position with the leg, but again, you're using your arms. Notice if your neck or your shoulders are doing anything funky, and then you're going to extend the foot up towards the sky. So the knee can be bent. We're not aiming to find a nice straight leg. You can definitely have some softness in that knee. And then bring some movement into the toes. So scrunch the toes and then flex the toes. Without moving into the ankle, just moving into the toes. And then finding some movement in the ankle. So point the toes, so allowing the top of the foot to reach towards the sky. And then the top of the foot is then reaching towards your legs. So flexing into the foot, reaching the heel up. A few more times like that. And then circle into the ankle. Notice if the jaw has begun to tighten or the face. So we're releasing here, doing a lot of releasing. In the low back, yes, but also in the rest of the body, allowing the body to let go and not have to hold on quite as much. And moving in the other direction. And then you'll release that. Release the strap to one side. Place the sole of the right foot back down onto the floor. And take a second in stillness to notice what you feel. And really get curious here. What do you notice between the right and the left side? And if you were to try to put words to it, what would that sound like? And then we'll explore that on the other side. So placing your strap now on the back of your left thigh. Again, you're using the arms here so you can wrap that strap around the hands. That then you can easily grip onto that strap, and the lower part of your leg is completely soft. And you're not using the strength in your legs at all for this movement. So readjusting the back of the neck, the shoulders, making sure those are in contact with the floor, and then we'll find that first movement. So you take an inhale here. Exhale as you gently bring that left thigh in towards the body using your arms. Inhale, the knee comes back over top of your hip. Exhale, hug it in. 2 more times like that. Meeting with the knee back over top of the hip, and we'll add that extension here. So you'll take an inhale to reach the foot up towards the sky. The leg can be bent, or the knee can be bent here. And then exhale as you bring the thigh in towards the body, dropping that foot. Inhale, extend the foot up towards the sky. And exhale, knee comes back in. A few more times like that. Next time that foot is reaching up towards the sky, you'll pause there. If there's any readjusting that needs to happen in the body so that your body is really releasing into the floor, then do that. And then bringing your attention back into that left foot and begin to move into the toes. So not into the ankle, but just the toes. So you can wiggle the toes, or you can scrunch all 5 of your toes and then open, fan out your toes. And then bringing the movement now into the foot, into the ankle. So point the entire foot and then flex the entire foot. So you may have noticed that we're not focusing entirely and solely on the low back here in today's practice. And that's because you may or may not, like if you've ever been to physio or you've ever just kind of explored somatic movement, you may have noticed that when there's pain in one area of the body, sometimes we have to move away from that specific body part and explore the other areas of the body that may or may not be affecting that pain. So we're just exploring here, bringing some attention to the feet, as that may or may not be an area that is affecting the pain that you might be feeling in your low back. And then circle into the ankles. And the slower the movements that you're doing today on your mat, the more your body can really feel them. And sometimes it's hard to slow down. So it's okay if that feels kind of odd, or if it takes a little while, maybe you haven't slowed down quite yet. Take your time, be patient, be kind with yourself. Circle in the other direction. Then you'll release that leg entirely. Release the sole of the foot down towards the floor. You can find stillness again here to notice. And then you can bring some movement into the legs, so allowing the knees to fall from side to side. So we've found some movement, some really intentional, slow movement in your legs. Now we'll do a little bit of strengthening into the low back. So you'll bring the knees back into center. So now, in terms of the positioning of the heels close towards the glutes, we're looking to walk the heels in pretty close towards your glutes. And the arms are coming down alongside the body with the palms touching the floor. So before you even come into the shape, we're coming into bridge pose. Allow yourself to get really intentional about the points of contact that are touching the floor. That will help to really support the movement, to support this strengthening. So spread the fingers wide, press the palms of the hands into the floor, press the arms in, the upper back, the back of the head, and the feet. Those are all of the points of contact that are still going to be touching the floor during the entire movement. So use those. And then remember that tilting of the pelvis that you did at the very beginning of the practice. So do that here. So you're going to lengthen into the low back, pressing the low back in towards the floor, and you're tucking the pelvis. Notice the lower abdominals engage here. So belly button comes in towards the spine. That strengthening of the abdominals helps the low back stay safe here in this movement. And then pressing into all those points of contact in the floor that you're using for this movement, and you're going to reach the hip bones, so the front of your hip bones, front of your pelvis up towards the sky, lifting the glutes away from the floor. And then you're going to pause here for a few deep breaths. So notice if your knees have begun to open and splay out from each other, you'll bring the knees back in line with the hips. Press into the floor with the arms, with the feet. Breathe deep here. So it's through the opposites of engaging and releasing and engaging and releasing that you'll be able to maybe explore what releasing truly can feel like in your low back. So you'll take one more inhale here. And slowly, really slowly, one vertebrae at a time, the hips are the very last thing to come down towards the floor. Lowering the low back down towards the floor. And then do whatever will feel good here to really and entirely release that low back. So that might look like knees falling from side to side or knees coming in towards the chest. Or it might feel good to take a nice big body stretch. So strength, straightening into the legs. The arms can come up overhead. And then releasing that, you'll bring the soles of the feet back down towards the floor. You're going to be coming up into seated. So rolling onto the right or the left side of the body. And before you press yourself up, just pause here for a moment. Bring those knees in close. You've got one arm underneath of your head to act as a pillow. Really kind of curving your body inwards. Again, still focusing on releasing, releasing, releasing. And when you're ready, you'll use your hands to gently press yourself up to come into seated with the legs in front of you. So once you get there, this is going to be the yin portion of today's class, where we'll be exploring one yin yoga posture here that we'll be holding for a few minutes. But before we come into it, and really in order to support you and to set yourself up here in this shape, I'll encourage you to grab your meditation cushion or your bolster or any sort of pillow that you have around and placing that underneath of your sit bones. The reason that we do that is because you might notice here, if you take a look at my body as I'm seated here, it's very easy for me to begin to collapse into the upper back as well as into the low back and the pelvis tipping backwards, which is not going to feel comfortable and it's really not going to help in that forward fold. So in order to really support yourself in this shape and to alleviate the tendency to do that is to place a cushion underneath of your sit bones. And instead of being like seated on it, you come onto that support and then you kind of wiggle your body forward so that then you're kind of sitting on the front edge of that pillow, that cushion. And you'll notice right away that you begin to feel a tilt in the pelvis, more of an arch in the low back, an arch that's supportive instead of creating pain. And it's almost impossible to like slump here in this shape. And then we're going to be coming into a straight-legged forward fold. So I'll encourage you to bring some softness into the positioning of your feet. So they can be a little bit wider than touching. They could be as wide as your mat. And you get to really choose here. And then if you notice the back of the knees really don't love this shape, then I would strongly recommend that you place your bolster underneath of your knees. This is not mandatory, it's not the necessary shape to come into, but bringing a bolster underneath of the knees can really help bring some softness to the knees and you're not feeling any sort of discomfort. I'm going to keep it, but you're welcome to choose whatever it is that you'd like to do. And then before you come into the shape, I'm just going to ask you to get kind of curious about this shape. So beginning to kind of like circle and sway, leading with the hands, and you slowly will bring yourself down. So notice that I'm not leading with my head, I'm not leading with my forehead, I'm leading with a nice long spine, open heart. And then once you find a position in the body, once you've kind of rocked and swayed back and forth as you bring yourself forward and you found a spot in the body where you begin to feel that stretch in the low back, maybe it's across the entire low back or maybe it's more on one side than the other, then you can allow your hands to come out on either side of the body with the palms open towards the sky and the forehead releases down. If it doesn't feel comfortable to have the head just floating above the floor here, then I would strongly encourage you to grab hold of your blocks and you can create a little bit of a building here so that your blocks are supporting your forehead and then you're not having to hold on to anything. So not only today are you exploring the practice of releasing physically, releasing pain, releasing tension physically in the body, more specifically in the low back, but when we embody these lessons, these practices, like today of releasing, of letting go, it can be a beautiful way to begin to incorporate those lessons of letting go and releasing off of your yoga mat and into your life. If you happen to be practicing this class in the season of autumn, this season is all about letting go, all about releasing what is holding you back, what you no longer need. You don't have to hold on to so much all the time. But sometimes we don't know what it is that we want to let go, what we want to release. And so through embodying the practice in a more physical sense, maybe you can begin to explore that lesson. The eyes are closed, the breath is long, especially those exhales. The exhales are long and slow. The shoulders soften. Release here. So you've been in this shape for quite some time here, so please be slow with releasing out of the shape. So if you've got blocks underneath of your forehead, then you'll place those to one side. Using the support of your hands, the head is the very last thing to come up, and you can keep your eyes closed here to notice what's happening in the body as you bring your body up. Pause at the top. And then if the eyes are closed and you want to keep them closed as you make your way down, then you can do that. But you're going to be making your way onto your back. So if you need to open your eyes at all to do that, to release the props, then go for it. Making your way back onto your back. And you can do it in a way that is as slow and intentional as you made your way up. So you're more than welcome to just kind of like plop down if that would feel good. But again, we're releasing, we're being really kind and gentle to the body. So if it would feel more comfortable for you to bring yourself onto your side and then come down this way and take a second back in fetal position. And then making your way onto your back. So the low back gets heavy again, settling into the floor. And after a forward fold, sometimes the low back can feel a little tender. So we're going to be coming into movements that are very similar to what you were doing with each leg, with the strap at the beginning, but we're going to be doing it with both of your legs at the same time. So to start, you'll bring the knees in towards the body and towards the chest. And I would suggest, just to be creating more space for the body, to place one hand on top of each shin or on the back of each of your thighs. You can enjoy just the stillness, or you can rock from side to side, massaging into the low back. Then you'll come back into stillness if you're finding movement, and now sliding the hands most definitely on the back of your thighs and finding a position in the legs like you had at the beginning of the practice. So press your low back into the floor and find your knees in line with your hips, and then the lower part of the leg is really soft. So again, you're going to be using your arms here for this movement. If you want to use a strap, you're more than welcome to. So you'll take an inhale here. Exhale as you gently bring the knees in towards the body. Keep the low back in contact with the floor. Inhale as you bring the knees back in line with the hips. Do that a few more times. Keep pressing the low back into the floor. Exhaling and inhaling, knees in and out. Knees come back in line with the hips, and you're going to add that extension into your leg. So inhale as you reach the feet up towards the sky. The knees can be soft. Exhale as you drop the feet back down and you bring the knees in. Inhale, extending the feet up towards the sky. Exhale, hug it in. Back of the neck is still long, shoulders are still soft. The movement is being led by your arms, not by your legs. So your legs are just totally soft here. Next time those knees are hugging in towards the body, you can release that lengthening of the low back and just kind of lift the low back up away from the floor and rock from side to side. And we're doing one last movement, before coming into your final relaxation. So you'll come back into stillness, and then you'll extend the feet up towards the sky. Again, those knees can be bent. You can allow the arms to settle into the floor. Get really heavy with the back line of your body. So your entire spine, your low back, the back of your head, your shoulders, settle, release, release, release into the floor. So you're going to be taking about 5 deep breaths for this next movement. And essentially what you're doing is you're just going to be bringing the legs back into the first position. So meeting with the knees in towards the chest, but you're taking 5 deep breaths to get there. So it's really, really slow. So back line of your body is really heavy, low back into the floor. Again, soften into the knees as much as you need to here. And then take an inhale here along the back line of your body, so your entire spine. Exhale as you softly bend into the knees and the feet come down just a bit. And then again, inhale, back line of your body spreads wide in support of the floor. And exhale as you softly bend the knees, feet come in. 3 more like that. Inhale. Exhale, a little bit closer in. You're using gravity here. 2 more breaths. Inhale. Exhale heavy, bring it in. Last one. Inhale up the length of your spine. Exhale, just let the feet come in, the knees fall in. Stay here for a moment. There's nothing you have to hold on to here. And then if there's anything else that would feel really good here, so maybe it's one more hugging in of the knees or a washing movement, knees side to side, soles of the feet on the floor, or lengthening entirely into the body. You'll make your way into your comfortable shape for final relaxation, Shavasana. If your low back is still feeling a little sensitive after all of that attention, you can place your bolster underneath of your knees. You come into the still shape. We'll be here for just a few moments. Whole back plane of your body softens and settles into the floor. Jaw softens, the eyes soften. And then slowly you'll wiggle into the fingers, the toes, the wrists, the ankles. Take a stretch of the hands up overhead. And knees come in towards the chest, hugging them in. Rolling onto the right side of the body. And then using this shape here to press yourself up into your comfortable seat. The hands come into heart center, the palms connected, the eyes are closed. Intentionally bringing your practice of releasing to an end. We'll take one last breath together. Inhale. Out the mouth, let it go. And softly opening up into the eyes. Thank you so much for joining me during today's low back release practice. If you enjoyed today's practice and you'd like to show the love, then like this video or comment below to share your experience, and also take a look at a few other videos that I have linked down below that might help in your exploration of releasing during this time, during this season. If you're not a subscriber already, that is the best way for you to support more free online, cozy and accessible yoga. Thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to practicing with you again.